Pirelli responds to McLaren versus Red Bull tire drama, the Verstappens send warnings to the FIA and media, and Mercedes is completely lost with its car again. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get into the latest F1 news. Pirelli Motorsport boss Mario Isola stated that there is no evidence supporting allegations that some F1 teams, particularly McLaren, have used water to cool their tires during races. This speculation arose during the São Paulo GP weekend, following claims that Red Bull had requested the FIA investigate the matter. This development follows previous technical disputes between teams, including concerns over McLaren's flexi-wing and an alleged device on a Red Bull car that could alter ride height. Isola emphasized that Pirelli gathers data showing no indications of water-cooled tires, reiterating their commitment to support the FIA. He mentioned that any modifications to tire gas, including the addition of moisture, are forbidden and require substantial evidence to investigate. He explained the theoretical mechanics of introducing water into a tire and its potential effects, including improved heat transfer and degradation control, although it could also lead to pressure issues. Ultimately, Isola stated that the investigation is up to the FIA, and Pirelli is ready to assist as needed. Lewis Hamilton has vowed to offer a $1 million prize to anyone who can work out why the Mercedes W15 remains so inconsistent at this late stage of the F1 2024 season. Having suffered 2 consecutive winless seasons in 2022 to 23, Hamilton returned to the top step of the podium earlier this year by taking an emotional home win at his home race at Silverstone. The 7-time world champion followed that up with another win at Spa weeks later, collecting a record-extending 105th career victory. Despite growing confidence that Mercedes have finally cracked the demands of the ground effect regulations, the team have largely struggled since the summer break, with Hamilton finishing no higher than 4th across the last 7 races. His season slumped to a new low at last weekend's Brazilian Grand Prix, where he described the car as the worst it's ever been over team radio. Having announced in February that he will join Ferrari on a multi-year contract from F1 2025, Hamilton has just 3 races left with Mercedes before parting ways with the German manufacturer. And he has described the second half of the season as devastating, having hoped to end on a high with the Brackley-based outfit. He told reporters in São Paulo, "It doesn't feel good, obviously. It's devastating to have these bad races in the second half of the season, but all I can say is we're trying coming into the weekends. But it's definitely not acceptable. It's definitely not good enough. We have to take accountability. I have to take accountability, but I am doing the best with what I've got." For some reason, the car has been the worst of it this weekend, and I don't know what it is. We're going to have to find out what it is. But still, the mechanics did a great job getting here early this morning. Practice pit stops at 4 a.m. and all the work they've done on the car throughout the weekend. One of the cars was working a lot better, so there's obviously potential still there. Asked why the Mercedes is still so temperamental, he laughed, "You tell me. That's the $1 million question. So if you can find it, I'll give you $1 million." Hamilton had the honor of driving the title-winning 1990 McLaren of his boyhood idol, Ayrton Senna, ahead of Sunday's race as Interlagos marked the 30th anniversary of the F1 legend's death. The 39-year-old described it as the highlight of his weekend, with the Mercedes W15 no good by comparison. He said, "The race was crap, but the driving Senna's car was the best thing ever, so I'm still happy and grateful that I had that experience here at Interlagos." An amazing reception from the fans. They've been incredible this weekend. The fans turned up, I think, at 3 a.m. this morning. So unbelievable commitment from the fans here this weekend. And let's not talk about the car, because the car's no good. Yesterday was terrible. Today was terrible. Yesterday was bad. Qualifying was bad, sprint race was bad, the car's just been bad all weekend. Hamilton's poor performance came on a day teammate George Russell led the early stages of the race before Mercedes called a pit shortly before the red flag stoppage cost him a chance of victory. Russell's 4th place finish moved him 2 points ahead of Hamilton in the drivers' standings with 3 races remaining, with Russell out-qualifying his illustrious teammate 16 times in 21 races, not including sprint qualifying sessions, in F1 2024. Hamilton claimed he does not care where he finishes relative to Russell in the final standings, adding that he just wants to keep the car out of the wall at this stage of the season. He added, "I'm not fighting for the championship. Doesn't matter really where we finish in the championship. I don't care if I finish ahead of George or behind George. It doesn't make no difference to me. I just want to keep the car out of the wall and try to score points if I can for the team. If they give me a car that doesn't bounce off the track in the next few races, then hopefully we can get a better result. But looking forward to Christmas. While the competition for the 2024 Formula One Championship has certainly provided fans and analysts with plenty of material to discuss and debate throughout this year, an entirely different and intriguing struggle has been unfolding behind the scenes that deserves attention. Max Verstappen, the reigning champion and star driver of the Red Bull racing team, has not shied away from expressing his feelings about the British media. He believes that there has been a significant amount of bias directed against him from certain quarters, particularly in the context of his performances and success on the track. His father, Jos Verstappen, has now also stepped into the spotlight to share his views, suggesting that Max's stunning victory at the Brazilian Grand Prix should serve as a powerful rebuttal to the critics who have doubted him. Since the very first race of the season, Max Verstappen has led the standings in the 2024 Formula One World Drivers' Championship. However, after several years of him consistently dominating the sport, many fans and experts began to hope for some fresh excitement and a new story in the title race. This desire for diversity and competition was temporarily fulfilled when Lando Norris, a rising star from the McLaren team, unexpectedly clinched a victory in Miami. This win provided a much-needed refreshment to the season, highlighting the possibility of a broader contest for the championship. As the season unfolded, the rivalry between Norris and Verstappen intensified, becoming more competitive and layered with media commentary. This increased tension has also spilled over into public discourse, with Verstappen openly criticizing the British press, which he perceives as favoring a local driver from a home team. Following his extraordinary win in Brazil, where he finished ahead of the competition by an impressive margin of over 19 seconds, Verstappen addressed the gathered journalists during the post-race press conference. He humorously noted, "I have a quick question here. I appreciate all of you being here," acknowledging the presence of numerous Brazilian reporters eager to cover the race. But he pointedly remarked, "But I don't see any British press. Did they have to run to the airport, or they don't know where the press conference is?" Jos Verstappen was present at the Interlagos circuit and witnessed his son's remarkable performance up close. He was eager to share his thoughts after the race, speaking to Dutch publication De Telegraaf about what he considered to be a perfect response from his son to the harsh criticisms leveled against him. "This is Max's perfect answer to a lot of whining, and certainly in the direction of the English," he asserted. He went on to express his belief that the negative comments coming from commentators, journalists, and even former drivers would now be silenced for a time. "Max has shown that he is the very best. Those people who then shout that he should change his driving style is perfect. Also a first lap in the rain where he gained 6 places. He is always perfect in these conditions." It's only natural for a father to feel a sense of pride in his son's achievements, yet it's clear that Verstappen's performance in Brazil was nothing short of extraordinary. Analysts and racing commentators hailed it as a generational drive, and many considered it a defining moment in the impressive career of the talented Dutch driver. Martin Brundle believes Lando Norris will change his view of Max Verstappen getting slightly lucky during the Brazilian Grand Prix, as the Red Bull driver was in a class of 1 on Sunday. Verstappen rose from 17th on the grid to take an unlikely victory in wet conditions at Interlagos, with Norris slipping to 6th place after starting from pole position, and the timing of a red flag stoppage leading Norris to his claim of Verstappen having luck on his side. Norris had already pitted for fresh intermediate tires as more rain fell on Sunday, with Verstappen opting to stay out along with both Alpine drivers. When Williams driver Franco Colapinto crashed under safety car conditions, the red flags were waved and Verstappen was able to change tires while maintaining 2nd place on track, which turned into the lead when he overtook Esteban Ocon at turn 1. He escaped up the road with a succession of fastest laps to eventually win by 19 seconds, in a performance Brundle described as a classic drive on Sunday. While Norris had initially said it was not talent, just luck that helped Verstappen on Sunday, he has since congratulated the World Championship leader on Instagram by commenting, "Nice drive, mate," under a post celebrating his victory. When asked on Sky Sports News if Norris will reassess his lucky verdict upon rewatching the race, Brundle replied, "Yes, I do think he will, because Max was in a class of 1. Those conditions suit his talent level." McLaren wasn't the fastest car in the rain, which is a bit surprising, because they looked so good in qualifying in wet conditions. Max got unlucky with the red flag in qualifying, but he stayed out on track in the race and expected a safety car or a red flag situation, so he knew what to do, and then he just steamed off and won by 19 seconds at a canter, really. It was a classic drive, and I think Formula One did really well to get the race underway and finished, actually. With Verstappen having now opened up a 62-point lead heading into the final 3 rounds, the Red Bull driver is now the hot favorite to take a 4th consecutive title. I think he just needs to extract the maximum out of himself and McLaren and his car and see where he ends up, to be honest, Brundle said. I think if he starts focusing on one team or driver or the other, that's a lot of wasted energy. He needs to prepare himself for a championship challenge for next year, which we know is going to be an all-time classic, a season for the ages because the cars have reached their peak of development and they've sort of hit the ceiling a bit and we know how close everything's going to be next year. So that's his focus. Just go as fast as he can, as long as he can, and see what happens. Anything else will just be a distraction. FIA steward Johnny Herbert has made it clear that he believes he has every right to express his own opinion, especially after remarks from Jos Verstappen, the father of driver Max Verstappen, raised concerns about the FIA potentially having what he described as the appearance of a conflict of interest. This situation has become more complex as emotions run high within the Formula One community, particularly after recent incidents during the Mexican Grand Prix. Recently, Herbert found himself in a difficult position after Max Verstappen received a rare and significant 20-second penalty during the race in Mexico. This penalty was made up of 2 separate 10-second penalties for different incidents involving McLaren driver Lando Norris. Herbert was one of 4 stewards on the panel that determined the penalties handed down to Verstappen. Following the race, this led to strong reactions from the Verstappen camp. In an interview with the Dutch publication De Telegraaf after the race, Jos Verstappen expressed his concerns quite publicly. He suggested that the FIA, which oversees the sport of Formula One, might risk giving the impression that there is a conflict of interest within its ranks. He went further, implying that some of the stewards who were present during the race may have biases against his son. He emphasized the need for the FIA to carefully reconsider how it selects its stewards, saying they needed to evaluate their personnel choices to ensure that there are no appearances of favoritism or bias, particularly when it comes to former drivers who may have certain preferences toward other teams or drivers. De Telegraaf speculated that Jos Verstappen might have been specifically referencing Johnny Herbert, who has previously worked as a pundit for Sky F1 UK and made critical remarks about Max Verstappen's approach to racing shortly after the race. Additionally, Tim Mayer, who is the son of late McLaren co-founder Teddy Mayer, was also mentioned in this context. At the following Brazilian Grand Prix, Mr. Verstappen maintained his stance and elaborated on his views. He told Viaplay that stewards should refrain from speaking to the media, suggesting that they should focus solely on their responsibilities. He maintained that this dedication to their role is not currently being observed. In response to these allegations and concerns raised by Jos Verstappen, Johnny Herbert stood firm, asserting that his personal opinions do not influence his decisions in the stewards' room. He argued that opinions are part of the sport, and that everyone involved, from commentators to other stewards, has the right to voice how they feel about the events on the track. Herbert explained that he separates his roles as a steward and a pundit. He pointed out that when he is acting as a steward during a race weekend, he does not make public statements. Outside of racing duties, however, he believes he is free to express what he thinks, and he feels justified in doing so based on his extensive experience in motorsport. He firmly believes that if he sees something on the track that does not sit right with him, he is entitled to voice that. When asked about Jos Verstappen's comments, Herbert acknowledged that he understands the perspective of a father defending his son, even while asserting that he does not harbor bias against any driver. He stressed that he wasn't the only person who felt that Max was being overly aggressive during the Mexican Grand Prix. Lando Norris and Zach Brown shared similar sentiments. Herbert emphasized that when he engages in discussions about racing on days following a Grand Prix, those conversations are separate from his duties as a steward. He also recognized that Jos Verstappen has been quite vocal about various matters concerning Red Bull racing, suggesting that this may not differ significantly from how he himself might express opinions. He concluded by pointing out that if anyone wants to share their thoughts, they are welcome to do so. Amidst these discussions, Max Verstappen has continued to perform remarkably well. At the Brazilian Grand Prix, he took a significant step forward in his pursuit of a fourth consecutive world championship by managing to win the race after starting from the 17th position on the grid at the Interlagos circuit. This victory has widened his lead over Norris, giving him a 62-point advantage as the final 3 races of the 2024 Formula One season approach in Las Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi. Valtteri Bottas is set to lose his Sauber seat for the F1 2025 season, with Audi F1 reportedly poised to confirm the signing of McLaren Jr. Gabriel Bortoleto. Audi F1, who will take over the existing Sauber team in F1 2026, remain the only non-Red Bull team yet to officially confirm their driver lineup for next season. The Swiss-based team announced the capture of Nico Hülkenberg from Haas in April, but were forced to assess other options for the second seat after top targets Carlos Sainz and Esteban Ocon elected to join Williams and Haas respectively for F1 2025. Current incumbents Bottas and Zhou Guanyu, former Haas driver Mick Schumacher, Aston Martin reserve Felipe Drugovich, current Sauber reserve Theo Pourchaire, and Williams F1 2024 super sub Franco Colapinto have all been linked with the second seat at various points over recent months. BOTTAS, a 10-time F1 race winner with Mercedes, told media including PlanetF1.com at the recent United States Grand Prix that he had agreed terms on a deal to stay with Sauber for next season, but was still awaiting a final decision from Audi F1 chief Mattia Binotto. It now appears the Finn is set to be left without a seat for F1 2025, with Audi F1 closing in on the signing of 20-year-old Brazilian starlet Bortoleto. A report by German publication Auto Motor and Sport claims that a contract to sign Bortoleto has been finalized with an announcement expected imminently. It is said that Audi F1 opted against announcing the signing of Bortoleto at last weekend's Brazilian Grand Prix to spare the youngster from excess media attention at his home event, with the Sao Paulo-born star set to become the first full-time Brazilian F1 driver since Felipe Massa in 2017. Bortoleto is the current leader of the prestigious F2, formerly GP2 series, holding a 4.5-point lead over Red Bull Jr. Isaac Hadjar ahead of the final 2 rounds in Qatar and Abu Dhabi. The youngster, who is managed by current Aston Martin driver and 2-time world champion Fernando Alonso, has been a member of McLaren's Junior Academy since last year. With current McLaren race drivers Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri under long-term contracts, however, team principal Andrea Stella recently signaled a willingness to release Bortoleto to take up a race seat with Audi F1. Stella told reporters in Brazil, "Having the possibility to talk about Gabriel, I would like to take this opportunity to say once again how good of work he's been doing in junior categories, winning F3, leading F2 at the first season," Stella said in the FIA press conference on Friday. And this is to lead into the fact that I think it's very, very normal and natural that Formula One teams are interested in having Gabriel as a driver. McLaren will not stop the possibility for Gabriel to drive Formula One, so conversations are ongoing and we will see what the scenario will be for the future. It is unclear whether Bortoleto's arrangement to join Audi F1 will be a loan deal with Binotto, who replaced former McLaren team principal Andreas Seidl as the head of the Audi F1 program in July, thought to be keen on a permanent move. If confirmed, Bortoleto's arrival would likely signal the end of Bottas's F1 racing career, with the Finn an ever-present fixture on the grid since making his debut with the Williams team in 2013. Bottas has been linked with a return to Mercedes as reserve driver for F1 2025, with a view to returning to a race seat in F1 2026. Speaking to media, including PlanetF1.com at last month's Mexican Grand Prix, Bottas admitted that he would be open to rejoining Mercedes in a backup role if he is unable to secure an Audi F1 race drive. He said, "Firstly, the priority is to stay as a race driver. That's what I want, and that's what I'm pushing for with Mattia. But of course, as I don't have anything signed, we're in October, I've got to look at all the alternatives, including going back to the Mercedes family. That's for sure one option, and I would consider it. But there's other options as well as going back to my priority, which is to be a race driver even more." Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.